Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload, and you'll never miss a story again. When she told me she was bored with our life, I thought she was joking. I had always believed that our quiet, peaceful existence was the foundation of something real. But in the months leading up to her departure, I saw it. The subtle changes, the late nights, the text messages with that smiley face she never sent me. Something had shifted, and I was the last to notice. I wasn't the most exciting man in the room. I wasn't the flashy type. I didn't take her out to fancy dinners or buy her extravagant gifts, but I gave her stability, loyalty, and something even more precious: my undivided attention. I thought that would be enough, but it wasn't, and I realize that now, too late. Her eyes always shone with ambition when we first met. She was that kind of woman. Passionate, fiery, driven. I admired her strength, but somewhere along the way, I must have missed the signs. I thought we were in sync, that we understood each other. I believed in the little moments, the quiet conversations over coffee, the shared dreams, and the years of growth together. I thought that love was supposed to be enough, but apparently, love wasn't enough for her anymore. The first sign came when she started coming home later and later, claiming work was piling up. She always had an excuse. It was always a new project, a new task, a new opportunity. I didn't question it. After all, she was successful, ambitious. Her career mattered to her, and I was always the supportive husband, the one who quietly cheered her on from behind the scenes. I thought if I gave her space, let her chase her goals, that our love would endure. But space turned into distance, and distance turned into a wall between us. It wasn't the big things that tipped me off. It was the small things. The way she started withdrawing from conversations. The way she no longer looked at me with that same warmth. The way she would sigh and glance at her phone mid-conversation. She was always texting. At first, I thought nothing of it. But soon, I started noticing the changes. She was texting someone frequently, someone who, when I asked her about, she simply dismissed with a vague, "just work stuff." Still, I didn't push it. I trusted her. I wanted to believe in the woman I had married, the one who promised we would always work through any challenge together. I kept convincing myself that she would come back to me, that things would settle down. But deep down, I knew something was slipping away. One day, I came home early, as I had been doing to surprise her. She wasn't home. I figured she was out with friends, or maybe caught up with a work meeting. But something felt off. As I sat on the couch, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was waiting for something that wouldn't come. The more I thought about it, the more my mind raced, and then, without warning, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from a dating app. I stared at the screen for a moment. My heart skipped a beat. Why was she on a dating app? I wasn't the jealous type, but this felt different. I clicked on the notification, and my stomach dropped. Her profile picture was there, a smile I hadn't seen in months, a version of her that seemed far removed from the woman I had known. I tried to brush it off, but that nagging feeling wouldn't go away. When she came home later that evening, I asked her about the app. Her response was quick, almost too quick. "It's nothing, I was just curious, it doesn't mean anything." But I saw the hesitation in her eyes. She wasn't being honest, and I wasn't stupid. That night, after she went to bed, I did something I had never done before. I checked her phone. What I found shattered everything. Texts, messages, photos, things I couldn't unsee. It wasn't just a casual curiosity, it was an affair. It was a betrayal. The man she had been texting, the one who had been receiving her late-night messages and phone calls, was someone I knew. He was a colleague, a man she had often praised at work, her mentor, as she called him. But now I saw the truth. He wasn't just a mentor. He was someone she had crossed the line with. Someone she had begun to share something with that was never meant to be shared. I could feel the weight of the betrayal pressing down on me. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just stood there numb, staring at the phone in my hands. Everything we had built, everything I had believed in, was a lie. She had been slipping away for months, and I had been too blind to see it. The next day when she came home, I didn't confront her immediately. I didn't shout or accuse her. I simply sat her down and asked, Are you having an affair? For a moment, she looked at me, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for a way out. She didn't say anything at first, but then the truth came spilling out. The guilt, the shame, it all poured out. She confessed. She told me everything. She had been seeing him for months, sneaking around, keeping the truth from me, all while pretending everything was fine at home. She told me she was sorry, but I could see the indifference in her eyes. She was no longer the woman who had once promised me forever. She was someone else, someone I didn't recognize. And then, as if that wasn't enough, she looked at me and said, "You know, this isn't you. You're so predictable. I need excitement. I need something more." The words cut deeper than any knife ever could. She wasn't sorry for what she had done. She was sorry that she had gotten caught. And worse, she was blaming me for her choices, telling me that I was the problem. I wasn't exciting enough. I wasn't enough for her. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The silence in the room was deafening. She had already made her decision. She wanted excitement. She wanted the thrill of the forbidden. And I was nothing more than a man who had become too familiar, too predictable. I knew what I had to do. I didn't fight for her. I didn't beg her to stay. I knew that the moment someone chooses to leave, there is nothing left to save. She had made her choice, and now I had to make mine. I would let her go, but on my terms. I calmly stood up, walked to the drawer, and pulled out the divorce papers. I slid them across the table toward her, my hands steady, my heart still. "Sign them," I said quietly. "It's over." She looked at the papers, her eyes flickering between them and my face. For a moment, I could see a hint of doubt in her expression. Maybe she was expecting a fight, maybe a dramatic plea to stay. But there was none of that from me. I was calm, controlled, and far past the point of pleading. This was it. Her fingers hovered over the papers for a moment, and I could see her hesitation. It was as if she was trying to process what had just happened, to wrap her mind around the fact that she was standing in front of a man who had stopped begging for her love, for her attention. I wasn't angry. I wasn't yelling. I was simply done. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she picked up the pen and signed the papers without another word. There was no apology, no remorse in her actions, just a cold acceptance that everything was over. I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of relief wash over me. It was the end of a chapter, and I was finally free from the tangled web of lies she had woven. I didn't make it harder for her. I didn't force a dramatic conversation. I just let her leave. She packed her things in silence, her eyes never meeting mine. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to fix. The woman I had loved was no longer the person standing in front of me. She was a stranger, and I had no room for strangers in my life. As she walked out the door, I closed it quietly behind her. It was the final goodbye. She was gone. But the quiet wasn't what I expected. I had imagined that in the aftermath, I would be consumed by anger, by heartbreak, by the thought of losing everything I had built. But instead, I felt something else. Felt peace. I felt the weight that had been dragging me down for months, maybe years, lift from my shoulders. The lies, the deceit, the betrayal. It was all gone. I took a deep breath and sat down. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could finally breathe again. In the following weeks, I focused on myself. I didn't seek solace from friends or family. I didn't want anyone's pity or advice. I needed to rediscover who I was without her, without the life we had built together. I dove into my work, threw myself into new projects, and found new hobbies that reignited the passion I had once lost. I began to enjoy my own company again, to remember the person I had been before she entered my life. I started going out more, rediscovering what it felt like to be single again. I went to places I hadn't visited in years, reconnecting with old friends and meeting new people. For the first time, I felt free. I wasn't weighed down by her demands or her discontentment. I was free to be me. And then came the moment I had been waiting for, the moment I knew she would come back. It wasn't immediate. She didn't call the next day or the day after that. I knew it would take time. But I wasn't mistaken in thinking she would come crawling back. It wasn't about her feelings for me. It was about her ego. She had made a mistake, and like most people who make mistakes, she would try to fix it. But I had already moved on, and I wasn't going to make it easy for her. The call came a month later. My phone buzzed with her name flashing across the screen. I didn't pick up immediately. Instead, I let it ring, knowing what this was about. I knew she wanted to apologize, to come back into my life. I could almost hear the desperation in her voice as she left a message. "I made a huge mistake," she said, her voice wavering. "I was wrong. Please, let's talk. I'm so sorry. Can we work this out?" I listened to the message and then deleted it without responding. I didn't need to hear it. I didn't need her apologies. I had already moved on, and I had no intention of letting her back into my life. But that wasn't the end of it. She kept calling, kept sending messages, each one more desperate than the last. She promised she had changed, that she had learned her lesson, that she was ready to fix everything. But the reality was that I no longer cared. I had been broken once, and I wasn't going to let myself be broken again. I was no longer the man who would sit and wait, who would forgive and forget. I had learned that sometimes the best way to move on is to let go completely. And so I did. It wasn't just about her, it was about me. I had learned to stand on my own 2 feet again, to live for myself. I had become stronger, more confident, and far more aware of my worth. I didn't need someone who saw me as predictable, as boring. I needed someone who valued stability, loyalty, and love. Someone who appreciated the simple things in life. And then, out of nowhere, she appeared at my door. I didn't expect it to happen this way, but there she was, standing on my doorstep. Her eyes were full of hope, of regret. She tried to speak, but I raised my hand to stop her. "Why are you here?" I asked calmly, my voice steady. I didn't think you'd be like this. I didn't think you'd just let me go," she said, her voice trembling. "I was wrong. I made a huge mistake. Please, just give me another chance. We can start over." I looked at her, taking in the desperation in her eyes. I saw the woman who had once loved me, the woman who had promised me forever. But I also saw the woman who had betrayed me, who had walked away the moment she felt bored, the moment she thought something better might be out there. "No," I said quietly. "It's over. You made your choice." She looked at me, her face falling, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But I knew better now. I had moved on and I wasn't going back. Without another word, I turned and walked back into the house, leaving her standing on the doorstep, just as I had left her once before. This time I wasn't looking back. Days passed after that final encounter, and I could feel the quiet strength I had been building within myself continuing to grow. The closure that came with telling her it was over wasn't something I had expected to feel so profoundly. It was as if the weight of years of uncertainty had been lifted off my shoulders. And now, for the first time in a long while, I felt truly free. I didn't need her to validate me. I didn't need her approval. I had come to realize that I had everything I needed to rebuild my life without her. The old me, the one who had been willing to forgive, to hope, to give second chances, had been replaced by someone more resilient, someone who could see the truth without getting blinded by emotion. I poured myself into my work. I threw myself into projects that had been neglected while I was wrapped up in her. I started new ventures, met new people, and explored things that I had pushed aside when I was too focused on her needs and desires. It felt good to be in control again, to take back the narrative of my life. I was no longer tethered to someone else's decisions. I was carving my own path, and it was empowering. Months went by, and her attempts to re-enter my life became fewer and fewer. Each time she reached out, I ignored it. Sometimes I'd get a message, a call, or an email. They were always the same, full of regret, apologies, and pleas for a second chance. But each time, I let them go unanswered. I didn't need to revisit the past. I had already left that chapter behind, and it was time for me to write a new one. One day, as I was finishing up a project, I received a letter in the mail. At first, I thought it was just another attempt to reach me. But when I opened it, I saw something that made my stomach turn. A court document. It was a lawsuit. She was suing for half of everything we had, every asset, every investment. It wasn't about the love we once shared. It wasn't about the betrayal. It was simply about money. She wanted what she believed was owed to her, and she wasn't willing to let me walk away without trying to take as much as she could. I laughed bitterly when I read through the document. She still didn't understand. She still thought she could come back into my life, still thought she could control the narrative. But she was wrong. I wasn't the same man who had once stood by, waiting for her to come back. I had changed. And now she would learn that the hard way. I immediately contacted my lawyer and had everything in place. We had already dealt with the division of assets months ago when she signed the divorce papers. There was nothing left to contest. She had no grounds to claim anything. But I knew this wasn't just about money. It was about her ego, her need to feel like she was still a part of my life. The court hearing came, and as I walked into the courtroom, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I wasn't nervous, I wasn't anxious, I simply knew that everything was in order, that I had done nothing wrong. I wasn't fighting for anything anymore. I was simply defending the life I had rebuilt. She was there too, sitting in the back with her lawyer. She glanced at me as I entered, but I didn't look back. There was nothing left to say to her. The woman who had once been my everything was now a stranger in a room full of people, trying to tear away what was rightfully mine. The proceedings were straightforward. Her lawyer tried to make a case, but it was weak. The evidence was clear. She had abandoned the marriage. She had walked away from everything without a second thought, and now she was trying to rewrite history. But it wouldn't work. As the judge looked over the case, I felt a sense of finality. This was it. There would be no more chances for her, no more opportunities to re-enter my life. The past was behind me and I was moving forward. When the judge finally ruled in my favor, I felt no triumph. There was no victory dance, there was no sense of revenge. There was only a quiet, calm acceptance that everything was as it should be. She had lost. But the truth was, she had already lost the moment she chose to leave. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt like a new man. I didn't need her approval. I didn't need her to feel sorry for what she had done. I didn't need anything from her anymore. I had won in the only way that mattered, by reclaiming my life, my peace, and my future. The months after the court ruling were peaceful. I kept my focus on myself, on building the life I had always wanted but had put aside for her. I traveled more, spent time with friends who valued me, and started to date again. I was in no rush to fill the emptiness she had left behind. I knew I had to heal first. And then, one day, months after everything had settled, I received a message. It was from her. But this time, it wasn't a plea for forgiveness, it wasn't an apology or a request to come back. It was a simple message. I just wanted you to know, I see the man you've become. I'm proud of you. I read the message, but I didn't respond. The man she once knew, the man she had betrayed, was no longer the same. I had become something greater than I had ever imagined, and I didn't need her recognition to validate that. As I sat back and thought about everything that had happened, I realized that the greatest revenge wasn't in what I had won. It was in what I had lost. I had lost the woman who couldn't see my worth, but I had gained something far more valuable: my own self-respect, my own strength, and the life I had always deserved. And that was enough.